This video of growing old Jewel Alocasia is my favorite one to make. I love showing you the updated sort of version of the plants that I started with 2 years ago, and I want to show you all the ups and the downs and also tell you what's been my experience with them. So before we get started, let's take a step back and talk about what is a Jewel Alocasia or Alocasia. Basically, it is just a category that we have made up as collectors. It has been used for like many decades, so it's not something that we're actually making up right now. But it is not a real category that has been sort of classified by the International Aroid Society. There's no official list. So over the past 2 years, every time I make this video, I try to make it once a year or something like that, so you can see some good kind of updated version of the plants. If you want to see it more often, comment down below how often you would like to see this particular collection updated. So basically the criteria that I've used for the past 2 years, it has been to just think of the ones that are more compact. Which ones stay small, they stay just sort of like in a more tighter space, like nothing with a hybrid with a outdoors or mycorrhiza or odora or any of those big, long kind of plants. Like these ones are just smaller. So personally, I have around 20 Jewel Alocasias that I consider to be like the jewel category. I know there's some other ones. This is going to vary because there's not one definitive answer. So if I am missing any, please comment down below. What do you think is a Jewel Alocasia? I should have it, and if I'm forgetting it, because potentially it's going to be the next video, which is all about the ones that are not the jewel, like everything else that I have, which is like another 40 species. So stay tuned for that. And in this video, I actually don't have any wishlist plants except one. So if you want to find out which one I'm still missing, stay tuned until the end. So the first one should be no surprise. This is my favorite type of Jewel Alocasia. I find it to be the best one for beginners, and I find it to be just one of the most rewarding ones. This is Alocasia Maharani, and it's a hybrid. And I'm going to show you the two parents because I also own them, and I've had a very different experience with them. This plant I consider to be the best one for beginners because it has really thick leaves, like they're really meaty, and it has this really interesting kind of texture to them. So what makes this a good plant for beginners is that it's a lot more forgiving of lower humidity and having more irregular humidity because it's thicker. So when it comes down to Alocasias, the thinner the leaf, the more susceptible it's going to be to low humidity or any kind of variation. The thicker it is, almost like a succulent, like it's able to withstand a little bit more of that kind of up and down. This is also a great plant because it holds leaves for a long time. But something that you're going to find in this video across the entire thing as a common trend is going to be what happens to the plant after it starts to produce inflorescence. If you don't know, an inflorescence is basically the flower. It's many little flowers, but it's just like the flower that Alocasias or Alocasias have. It is currently sitting in a leca and perlite in a container with a basket, and it's sitting in its reservoir, which is what makes it super easy. And this plant just holds leaves for a long time. I definitely recommend it if you don't have it. If you're wondering why it has this kind of dark spots here and there, it is not like a fungal infection. It has to do with ventilation. Basically, I moved it to a spot and the guttation got stuck in the leaf, and it was just not getting enough airflow for it to like shed it. So it is really important with those meaty kind of leaves that you put it in the good ventilated area because you don't want the water sitting there because it's very susceptible to creating those kind of like holes like this. If you have seen my other videos, you know that this plant has a variegated version that I have wanted, and it was in my wish list, and I'm so excited to say that I finally own it. This is Alocasia Maharani variegated Albo, and it's so beautiful. I was lucky to get one that is putting out some beautiful pattern that still has a lot of green, and I really hope it does not go like fully white. This plant also comes in an Aurea version, as you can see right there. This comes in a more Aurea version, and it has some other kind of qualities. Personally, I am super excited to just have this one. I do not need any more or any other types. I'm just going to grow this, make it as big as its other one, see how pretty it gets, and then hopefully give a bunch of corms or just baby plants to you in some fun giveaways on Palmstreet. Up next is going to be one of the parents of Maharani, which is Alocasia Melo. This is a very kind of gritty plant. It has a very strong texture. This is where all the Maharani texture comes from. It is a thicker canna leaf, But unlike Maharani, I will say that I have found Melo to be a difficult plant. Like this is not the only one that I own. Like I have this one here, which is just going through a major struggle. Obviously, it's like it grew a lot. Eventually, was like I'm not happy anymore, and then it just killed its last leaf, which is sad because this was becoming like the biggest one that I had among them. So it is definitely a bummer. For this, this plant is basically just difficult. I don't know, like I see some people having a lot of success and it gets nice. I will give it some credit and say that it stays super compact. So you are able to get like a lot of leaves if you're able to like master it. As you see, mine tend to keep like 2 to 4 leaves. I have not been able to get a lot more than that. I have never been able to get it at the same size or anywhere near as the Maharani. There is an Albo version that right now it's going for like $500 that I've seen being sold. It looks like that. Every time I see it, honestly, I just kind of sigh. I'm always like, because I don't know who's buying that plant. Please update me. Like, how is it doing? Because I only see a few people post about that Albo plant, and they look good, but they're selling like the plant and the corms. So it's kind of like, I don't know what you're doing to make it look prettier. I need someone who actually purchased it to tell me what's been your experience with the Albo Melo. Because to me, it just sounds like a recipe for a nightmare. Because if I'm struggling with the green version, once you add unstable variegation to the mix, like, no. Up next is the other parent of Maharani, and the reason I wanted to show the Melo first to be like, that is the problem. So I think this is giving a lot of the Maharani goodiness, and the texture is coming from the Melo, which makes it such a great hybrid. So this is a reginula black velvet. This particular plant has a tiny little growth, so the little leaves that you see is a second plant. All the big ones are from one. So as you can see, this one is sitting also in the same type of container with a reservoir. It has water and it's sitting in a basket, in a orchid type of basket. I love this plant. It's definitely also one that I recommend. It's one of those, you know, very, very stereotypical Jewel Alocasias. But hey, there's a reason why this is so popular. I like it. It is not the most difficult plant. I don't think so at all. Some people struggle. They say it's humidity. I don't think it's humidity itself. I just had to move it around until I found a spot where it was getting enough air directly that it would make all those drops kind of fall. And ever since, it has been doing a lot better. As you see, the newer leaves do not have that. So, you know, we're figuring it out. You need to be able to move your plants a little bit, especially if you're dealing with Jewel Alocasias. So this plant is gorgeous by itself if you love the blackness, but it actually has 2 variegated versions. It has the latte, which is considered, this one is like the gold variegation. It actually, funny enough, was not really popular when it first came into TC. So people were not purchasing it, and it kind of like fell out of, you know, options to sell it. And then once the pink black velvet, which is the other version, the Albo, kind of took over and became huge, and eventually the price dropped down a lot, that one that was the gold, the Aurea, ended up going up in price because people wanted it and they just did not have access to it. All of these plants are in a perlite and fluval stratum inside the little containers. You can watch my corm and my TC videos if you want to see me kind of putting them in there. So this one is going to be the second one. Look how beautiful that is. Look at that color. So I am very, very interested in them getting to the corming phase and then getting to it to like inflow. And I'm really excited to have these in my collection. So we are staying with Reginula, but this is the Ninja. So basically with Alocasias, you sometimes get one that look kind of weird or different. So they end up becoming cultivars. What it means is that it has some characteristics that it's able to pass along, so it becomes slightly different than others. So that is what happened with the Ninja. It was basically a Reginula that has more circular leaves and it has more veins in them. So I do not own the normal green version. I'm putting some footage, of course. What I ended up getting were the Tricolor. I just wanted it because I wanted to sort of see how different they would be from the normal Reginula. And if you're enjoying my collection, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That way you can keep up with all of the updates that we have. Up next is a classic. This is Alocasia baginda Dragon Scale. This is the green one, I mean, there's two, they call like green scale or dragon scale. I'm not really sure what's the difference between them. Both of them look really similar to me. This is my variegated one. It has not put out the most variegation over the past few leaves, but honestly, I'm not too mad because this leaf came after a couple of like inflorescence cycles, and it actually got bigger than the others. So I am not stressing because all of the corms that come from this plant are variegated. I have seen that, and then this plant is sitting just in some leca in the reservoir, living its best life in there. I like this plant a lot. As you can see from the other kind of leaves, it is a lot more forgiving of a lower humidity. It has a thicker one. If anything, sometimes it just complains about too much water and not enough aeration. So you also need to focus on it having good ventilation all around. But this one does not have like the yellow edges or the tip. There is an Albo and there is a Aurea, but I'm gonna be honest, sometimes it's hard for me to tell them apart because a lot of my Albos end up looking more Aurea-y, and then other ones look more just white. It really, in the same plant, you'll get both depending on the leaf. I don't know if that has to do with like the amount of light it's getting or temperature, but basically I have just kind of stuck to the Albo one because I think it's the most gorgeous. This is one of the babies. The last leaf came out a little too white, so I am hoping that it pulls it together. So this is the variegated version. I am going to put here the other more yellowy kind of version of baginda. So of course, the next one is going to be the silver dragon. I'm going to be honest, out of the two, consistently, I have always struggled with the silver dragon a little bit more than the other. It does hold more leaves, but it's a little bit harder for it to like size up. And I've also struggled with the yellowing a little bit more than the green one. As you can see, some of the older leaves do have that kind of crunchy edges that have to do more with like just humidity and then just, you know, normal aging of the leaf. This plant is actually currently undergoing a good old inflorescence sort of cycle. Right now, I already cut one because I want to take some pictures. So it has one here that is just like old and doesn't need it. It has one that is basically about to come out and open. And then it has another one here pushing. And of course, my favorite part and one of the, I want to say, most important things whenever you have Alocasias that are in inflow is making sure that they still have an active growth point. If not, they get ugly. I'm going to show you my reversa, which did not get too good. So right now it's putting out both the inflorescence and a new leaf, which to me tells me that this plant is healthy. This plant is getting enough light and nutrients to like continue to thrive. This is the first time that we are doing this type of inflow cycle with this. So I don't know if afterwards is gonna kind of like get weird or something like that, but just seeing a new kind of growth point and it just coming out this way is giving me a lot of hopes. This plant also comes in two variegated versions, which I do not have. I do have a friend that has the Albo and I'm trying to just swap for it, but it has the Albo, which I find to be the most beautiful version. I mean, look at that. Look how gorgeous that is. The contrast between the green silver with the really white, I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. And it also has a more yellow version, which I don't care too much about. So I'm hoping to have this plant with an Albo version, but it is not a priority. It is not something that I would pay for. I would swap for it. So there is a final contender for the baginda kind of family in my collection. And this is the Alocasia baginda dragon scale mint. And it looks something like this. This plant actually looks really cool. It's a lot more stable than some of the other variegated versions of this plant. And also is not as expensive. I think this plant was fairly cheap compared to some of the other variegated versions out there. I think the mints are just kind of like cheaper. I don't know if people don't like them as much or they're more common occurrence, but they're definitely cheaper across the board. So this one turns into obviously something like this. This one so far has been a bit of a slower kind of grower, but I am pretty excited with what it's doing. So it's creating kind of like, you see how it's white, but it has some stains that makes it look kind of pretty cool. And then this other one here, kind of half moon into it being like half green. And I don't know how it compares to the normal Albo because the Albo version really varies on how variegated it is. So if you get two corms from the same plant and one of them is more white, it will grow way slower than the other one that has less variegation. So the mint ones, I'm not sure where they fall in this. Up next, of course, is one of my favorite ones, so much that I made an entire video on how you can take care of it best. And I want to say in that video is when this plant looked the best. I knew that we were in a little bit of trouble because it was starting to put out some inflow, and I was like, oh, I don't know how this plant is going to react with it, because it is not the first time that we do it. This plant has been a trooper. It has been here holding all the leaves, and we have gone through two separate inflorescence cycles. As you can see down here, where you can see the where you can see the corm kind of coming out of, this is actually where we had some inflows. As you can see, the size of the leaf dropped a lot. And then we kind of got better, and then we just went through a final cycle. Yeah, this plant did some funny things. It was looking up a lot better and prettier and higher, but it actually just ended up kind of like turning all of its leaves. So I think it has more to do with the inflow. So the two things are happening right now. The first one is it did put out a growth point, as you see right here, after its last leaf. It's right there. So I am hoping that now we just continue to push out a new leaf rather than another inflow, because I'm tired. So I found Azlanii to have like the most kind of fake out inflows ever, because sometimes you think you finally hybridized and you got a right one, and then it, like after 2 months it just dies. And you're like, damn it. So this one I crossed with Melo, so the other one, the parent of Maharani, and I don't know, so far as like sticking out to it, they are getting bigger and we are, you know, figuring it out. So I am not too upset about this plant half melted, because it is putting out a lot of energy into this, the little berries here. Fingers crossed something fun happened, Azlanii and Melo. That would be kind of probably something interesting. So right now I'm just praying that this plant stays safe and healthy for the next 5 to 8 months, because that's how long it takes for the berries. So yeah, so next time you see this plant, who knows? It could be dead. It could have some cool hybrids. Who knows? What I do know is that this plant comes in two beautiful, beautiful, beautiful variegated versions. The first one is the more yellowy type. This one is a little bit more rare and more expensive. Not my favorite, but I do think it's beautiful. I have seen some pictures that make it seem like it's taken away from the beauty of the plant. This plant is just super iridescent. This plant just works really, really well whenever you're putting it in the light. It just shines. So I feel like whenever you have the yellow, it kind of takes away from that, which kind of goes against like the fantasy. And this is the Azlanii Albo. It is absolutely gorgeous. It was on my wish list for the longest times. You can see this half moon gorge. You can see this other leaf that was afterwards. It has that kind of marbling that is just the, God, is just absolutely gorgeous. And the original leaf also had a really, really nice color. So I'm really excited about that. Something that you can see in this is it has a new growth point. So I think it's doing well. You can see all of the roots are there. This is basically the same plant as the TC video. So far, so good. I just need to keep up with like mold. I don't know why this plant keeps growing kind of mold around the base. So I need to keep spraying it down with hydrogen peroxide. And of course, here's some video of this plant fully grown. Up next in my list is Alocasia Cuprea. Nobody wants to hear me complain when my plant looks kind of cute. I have struggled a lot with this plant. So this plant, I have struggled keeping the leaves looking pretty. They're finally looking up, and it's literally sitting all the way down at the lowest tier of this these kind of poles. They're all the way at the bottom. So finally, the leaves are kind of like looking up towards the light. This plant is the worst. If it gets too much light, it just bolts the leaves out and it bolts it down. And once it hardens, because the petiole will harden, you're cooked. Like this plant does not move its leaves again once like they get to that point. So it made it kind of not be the most aesthetically pleasing of plants. But I just cannot get it to look as pretty as I want it to. I cannot get it to look big enough. Like I want the leaves to be big. Like right now they're a little bit over the size of my hand and they're like long and huge. I don't know, like it's just not living up to some of the other standards. Something that happened with this plant, and you can see it's a very, very long boy. I've had it almost for 2 years since those videos. Same plant. We have gone through a bunch of inflow cycles. We did some down here. Basically, whenever you see this kind of brown, almost ring, that has been an inflow cycle. So we have gone through a bunch of them. Last one was rough, brutal. It put out like 4 back to back to back, and it just lasted months and months and months. And then the weirdest thing happens. I'm not sure. I mean, I'll look it up and I put it on the screen. If I mean, there is a term, but I don't know off the top of my head what it is. But basically, what happened is in this point where it had the last inflow cycle right there, it basically split into 2 growth points. And now it's actively pushing out growth in 2 spots, but they're all formed from the same stalk. It kind of just like split. I'm assuming this is because of all the damage or all like how long it took for the inflows to stay there. The plant eventually was like, I'm pushing new growth. And I guess it just like, I don't know, it powered through 2 different nodes or something. So now this plant is growing 2 sets of active leaves. So the little ones that you see, this tiny little baby, this one here, these ones are all, I'm trying to hold on to it so I don't like drop it. So these are 3, and these are like the ones from it. As you see, they're like kind of small, like smaller than the other ones. These 3 are basically that. And then these other ones here on top, these are like the actual other growth point. Cuprea comes in some variegated versions. It comes in the latte, which is absolutely gorgeous. Is this kind of the Aurea version basically, and it looks just like this. I have seen people have it. I don't know how much it goes off the top of my head, but probably I don't know, more than $500 most likely. And then it has the true pink, which is this one. This is the actual kind of Albo version that is now called a true pink. This is the one that is going to go for thousands of dollars. Even now, like a corm is going to cost you hundreds. So it's still really, 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 really expensive. But funny enough, there's like an inverse, the flip side of the Albo is the mint. So the mint, I don't know if it's like easier, more stable, I don't know what comes, but that one has a much, much, much lower price. So if you will pay $5,000 for the true pink, you would end up paying like $500 for this one. So that is why I ended up getting, this is the Cuprea mint, right there, boop. Cuprea mint. I paid a little under, I want to say like above 150. I want to say like 170 for it. I don't remember the specific amount. Yeah, I kind of regret it because I'm not really hopeful on this plant. It's really white. And that was exactly what I did not want. And that is a risk with the true pink because it's true Aurea and then you're in risk. But I really, really expected the mint one to pull it together. That even if it was green, if it was white, it would have enough green to keep it alive. And that has not been the experience. This plant has had like maybe 4 or 5 leaves and it looked kind of pretty. And then once I took it out into more of the humidity in here, so not covered, it lost all the leaves. Like all of them just crunched up. It was very, very sensitive. And this last one, literally, I'm so bummed out that it came out completely white. Like it only has a baby streak of green in there. And yeah. Now, if you remember my original update video, there was one plant that I had struggled a lot with, and that is Alocasia Nebula. And I'm going to be honest, it's still a difficult plant. While I seemingly have figured out how to keep this plant happy, right? 4 leaves, they're looking gorge. I mean, look at the detail. It's putting out a new one, very purple. It does give a little bit of a similar vibe as the baginda, right? The other one, but that one is greener and this one has a much more kind of silver and dark kind of look. And as you can see, it has a little baby. I actually have a few versions of this plant and I'm going to show you why, even though it seems like this particular specimen is doing really, really well and I'm like, I got this, let me show you why I don't. So this right here was actually bigger than this one. And oof. It was brutal. I ended up repotting it to get into the bigger container, the one with the big net pot, crashed. All the leaves were gone. They just crumbled. All the roots were rotten, like instantly. That was and I was so careful because I had already had this experience in the past. So So I was trying to be super, super careful with not touching them, not crushing them, being very gentle. None of that worked out, and this plant completely crashed into a knob. And then I had to go through my kind of rescue strategy for those like completely rotted Alocasia nodes. And luckily for me, it worked out. It functioned really, really well, and I started putting out a lot of growth, because like the actual stem and the actual like growth point was healthy. It just had no roots or leaves. This is the second one that went from looking like this to looking like this. As you see, you can see like in the middle, I have that growth point. I'm sorry, like the actual stem, and then all we have is a tiny little growth on the side. I actually tried doing this strategy, so I would not even have to touch the roots. They kind of just go down, down, down. No, it didn't work out. It completely crashed. So this is tough. All right, I wanted to bring the second one because obviously like the other ones completely died, but this one is doing okay. This is my other Nebula. So as you can see, it is really pretty. This one is sitting in Pawn. This one is sitting in Aroid mix. So kind of my experiment, I was trying to figure out which one would be better for them. It's okay so far. Again, the issue with this plant is not growing it, it's repotting it. Here's some examples. This plant actually comes in an Aurea version. It's okay, but the most beautiful one is the white one. So this white one is the Albo, and it turns pink because the back of the leaves are red. You know, it's similar to the baginda. If the back of the leaf is red, then the variegation will most likely be pinkish. I have not gotten any of them to inflow, so technically I don't consider that I have gotten it to like true like maturity. We're still trying. It just crashes before that happens, or it just gets to root bound that I kind of need to like repot it. And up next, well, similar but not the same, this is Alocasia Reginae. A Reginae sometimes gets confused and they call it like Nebula Elaine. I have not found out what a Nebula Elaine is. It always ends up looking just like Reginae. So actually this plant, also a heartbreak. Damn, this plant's like a rough in the middle, because look at how big and beautiful I got the first specimen to be. I mean, it got massive. If anything, my biggest issue with that plant is it was doing too well. It was doing so well that I had to repot it because it just kept like drying out its reservoir like multiple times per week. So that made it kind of struggle because I would water it once per week and then it would need more, and then it would be like up and down. And you know, when Alocasias kind of get unhappy with the watering, they kind of go like shrivel up. And even if you water it and they go back up, like you have caused damage that sometimes it shows later like in the leaf. So I put it in there in a bigger container. I try to be as delicate like as possible to not be touching the roots or anything like that. And unfortunately, it looked like it was gonna do okay. Like it lasted a couple weeks and then it crashed into a tiny little knob that I still have, and it's sitting in one of the containers that have like a lid down there, because like it just went into like that and gone. Luckily, it had a bunch of corms, so now I have like 7 or 8 Reginaes, and I have them all in different like substrates and different like containers, because I'm going to try to do everything as possible to get it big again, but not let it die. I have seen this plant in variegated, and you can see it right there. If this would have been, I don't know, 6 months ago, I would have been like, yeah, well, of course I want to get it variegated. Like it's so cool and so much easier than Nebula. And then I repotted it and I went through the exact same struggle. So right now I'm thinking I don't care for it. So I'm good. I'm just going to try to get these ones to get as big and beautiful and to give me a inflorescence, just like the Nebula, and that's it. Up next is Alocasia platinum, or Bisma, which is the name of the species. This is one of those plants that also look really, really cool in pictures, and once it gets big, and I have seen some people just buy like from growers like the adult versions. Wow, like they create this beautiful leaf. It looks a lot like the Nebula, but like big and long, and it has the beautiful kind of texture that platinum just has by itself. I don't know, it just kind of stops growing. I have encountered that multiple times. Like it was doing great, and then kind of like halted. And it did not put out any new growth at all for like months and months and months and months and months and months. Eventually, like 8 months, I was like, what's happening? Like you're not doing anything. Like you're not growing new roots. Like the reservoir's not full of roots. You're not pushing new growth. Like what's up? So I ended up splitting it because these two plants were like in the same kind of container. And I was like, okay, maybe they're like, I don't know, interacting with each other and doing something so they don't grow. I don't know, like, so this one has a bigger leaf that it put out last, which I'm really excited for this one. Unfortunately, it looks kind of thick. So it might be an inflow, which I would hate because I want this plant to thrive. I want to get bigger. I'm not ready for it to just be like a flower, because then it's gonna make me feel like it's just trying to kill itself because it's like struggling. It's like, here you go, like just let me die. So yeah, so I've seen this plant be really, really successful with others. I have just not found it to be the easiest one. Of course, there is a version of this plant that is variegated and it looks like this. It is beautiful, but you will not see it in my collection unless I get it for free or like as a swap or something like that. Because if I'm struggling with the green one, I don't want the variegated one because it's just gonna make it that much more difficult to figure out what it likes and what it doesn't like. Up next is going to be Alocasia flying squid. This is a mutant from Plum Bay, which is a big, big outdoor kind of plant. And you will usually not find it in most like Jewel Alocasia videos, but I consider it to be one of them because it just gets really small. It doesn't get that big. And even the adult versions get kind of shrubby. Tough plant. I have killed like 4 of these. This is the last one I actually got as a tissue culture in a bag, and it was really, really well grown. I put it in its container, it was doing really well, and then the instant I took it out and like put it in just the ambient humidity in the cabinet, all the leaves just went to like yellow and it struggled a lot. So we just went back in, and as you can see right here, you can see one of them has a tiny little bit of leaf. This is how this mutation works. You only get the green on the very, very tip, and it just keeps kind of pushing and growing. Up next is a plant that has made it in and out of this list a few times, and it's mostly because it's a fake out. This is Alocasia sinuata, and it is a Jewel Alocasia or Alocasia, mostly because it kind of, I don't know, it's weird. So at first I stopped really, really fast for me. Like it went from a tiny little plug to basically a bigger than my hand kind of size. And I was like, oh my God, this plant is so big. Why is it considered like a jewel? Like it grows so much more like vigorously than the other plants. And then it had an inflorescence and everything went to like shit. This plant basically bolted, which is what I'm kind of calling whenever plants put out an inflow and then stop growing after. It just bolted any growth for months and months and months and months. And then finally, a couple of weeks back, it kind of grew, and then it finally put out a leaf, which is a lot smaller. So I was like, oh, like you went from having bigger leaves to then dropping everything to put the flower and then nothing. So that made it into a struggle plant. And unfortunately for me, I ended up purchasing a bunch of variegated ones. And that journey was also kind of difficult. So let me show you some footage, because the best footage of my plants are in pictures right now from them. I had some issue with a water balance that I am making a video if it's not already up. And I basically murdered a lot of my middle-size Alocasias, including all of the ones that were the variegated ones of these. So you can see there, you can see some of the variegation. It is really light because it's dying, and then this leaf doesn't have a lot. I have a bunch of them. I'm showing you footage because none of them look like good enough. And what happened with them is they burn in green. So it comes out and it does have that variegation in there. And then you're like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. Like I cannot wait for it to like burn yellow. It doesn't burn yellow. It actually burns dark green. So then it just turns dark green. And I was like, oh, that's the lamest variegation ever. So I don't like the variegated version of this plant if it turns back to green. So make sure if you get a Aurea, make sure it turns and stays yellow. And then there is an Albo version, but I don't see that readily available. Most of the TC that I've seen is that Aurea type of burn-in, not burn-in kind of variegation. This plant has a bunch of little babies, all the variegated ones multiplied. So I will have a bunch of these, and I will continue to struggle with them. But if you have a Sinuata that is like thriving, like, is there something that you did whenever it started putting inflows, or is it just luck? Is it just doing nothing? Like, I don't know why this plant, Loki, doesn't love me. Up next is kind of like the reason why I was like, oh, I need to do this video now. This is Alocasia Antoro Velvet, or Chienlii. It was in the other kind of category before, but I really truly think that this is a Jewel Alocasia. It stays really compact. which is what I really like about this plant. Most of the time, the leaves are just kind of like this, and it just stays in a very, very nice rosette. It has some of the most interesting texture that any of my plants have. Is super, super velvety. Like, it really lives up to its Antoro Velvet name. Like, it feels like you're just touching velvet. It has the little hairs, it has the little fuzz. This plant I found to be very delicate, which is what makes me really surprised at all of the ones that are being put out in like grocery stores by all of these big kind of, not like just producers, because it's a tough plant. It looks beautiful and it looks unique, and I can see why someone would just purchase it if they are just like walking or checking out. But while I can get it to grow like this and even bigger, you can see some footage of some of my other ones that have gotten big. This plant also crashes every time I touch the roots and repot it. So I had to repot this one because it was in a container which was completely root bound and it started to rot. And I was like, no, I cannot let that happen. So I literally pulled it out, like the root ball was just the same. I just plopped it into this bigger container and just very carefully covered the sides with sphagnum, and because it was in it was not on pond. So I put some sphagnum and perlite in this one, and then I'm just hoping that it puts out all the roots from this net pot, and then it survives and it doesn't like crash. So just in case it does, I wanted to just showcase it. Right now, I have not had it inflow yet, but it sounds like I'm about to experience it, for better or worse. So whenever you see some funky growth in your Alocasias, you should be thinking of two things. The first one is pests, because if you have like spider mites, if you have thrips or anything like that, it will affect the development and the leaf opening. So you get like a weird leaf. But two, whenever you're about to go into like a reproductive type of cycle, sometimes that also puts the plant through some stress. So as you can see, something really weird is happening here, in which you have this leaf coming out. It's like a perfect little tiny leaf. Then you also have a second leaf unfurling in front of it, which to me is like the bigger one that will match like this size, which is kind of odd. But then I noticed that there's a third kind of lump right here, right there in the middle. You can see it right here, this one. I'm touching it and it feels like an inflow, because I can feel like the difference, like it just comes like there. There is a couple of versions of this plant that are variegated and they look like this. The pink one is the most gorgeous one. The mint one to me sounds like it's danger zone, but it looks pretty. Like you can see how pretty that mint one is. The pink one is just gorgeous. Again, whenever you get that Albo, because it has this back that is really dark, it makes it into this cool, deep pink kind of color. But this plant is tough. And again, unless it's free or a swap, I don't think I would get the variegated version of this plant. I'm still trying to master and figure out. So the next ones are a mix of like plants that I had not put into this category before, plants that were on my wish list, or simply plants that I just changed my mind on. So this is one that was on my wish list many, many times. Unfortunately for me, I got it. It's doing fantastic. And it has multiplied, so I got plenty. If you ever run into me, I got one for you. This is Alocasia Scalprum. And Scalprum is just this beautiful, it also not like, it has this interesting name like a lance, because I guess it's like so thin. It has like the texture of like a Melo, like a Maharani type. It has the really, really dark petiole. It has a really dark leaf. And I'm gonna be honest, it's pretty chill and ambient temperature. Like mine is like 50%. You don't see any of that yellowing that you see in the other plants. It's literally sitting right there. Like that's where it lives. It is doing really well. It puts out a lot of corms. It is sitting inside a pond mix, but I have it in different mixtures and all of them are doing fairly well. This plant comes in a beautiful Albo version that I honestly would get. Again, I'm not trying to pay those prices. I have not seen it in tissue culture, so I'm assuming it's still like super expensive. But if someone gifts it to me or swaps for it, I would definitely get this in a Albo variegation, because look at that. Look how beautiful that is. This plant is pretty good at holding, I want to say, many leaves. As you can see right now, it's doing 5 and it's currently pushing out new growth right there. However, I already went through the inflow with this one and it struggled. This is another one that I consider that bolts. What that means is once it puts out like the inflows, it will not do anything for a long time. This plant stayed just like as 2 leaves and a dark dry spot in the middle for almost 5 months before it pushed out new growth and then finally has pushed out new leaves nonstop every month. So I am very interested to see what happens once more next time I get an inflow in this plant. Will it again just bolt, or is it just going to thrive? And it was more of a stage. Now that it's bigger, now that it's stronger, it's able to have both the inflow and new leaves, similar to the silver dragon. Yeah, beautiful plant. As you can see, it comes in variegated. I definitely recommend this plant, and it was in my wish list, and I'm really happy with it. I actually do own a variegated version of Scalprum that I don't see a lot of people post. I was like, sure, I'll give it a whirl, and I'm struggling. So this is the Scalprum Mint. It basically turns, well, mint. It's completely white, and then the leaf begins to turn a little bit green. My issue was the first leaf that it put out was completely white and it never turned green. And I was like, oh no. And then the second one, it's also completely white, but it is more green, like greenish. So I think this one is producing chlorophyll. And then the next leaf that it put out is like this microscopic leaf. And I'm like, we're in danger. What's happening? I don't know what's happening with this plant. Like I thought it's supposed to like pull it together by itself because it's mint, so the variegation amount doesn't matter. But if it does, like I'm cooked. Yeah, so mint, it looks like this, absolutely gorgeous. I don't think mine's gonna look, I mean, no, hold up. Mine will look like that, putting it out into universe. So Scalprum is a type of plant that appears in an entire part of islands, you know, from like the Philippines and that kind of area. You get a lot of them. So you get a lot of diversity depending on where they are. Like if it's closer to the ocean, like a lowland, if it's higher in a mountain, a highlander. And then you get just different variations in between them. And of course, if it overlaps with a different species, then you end up with hybrids. And once you bring hybrids into the mix, like it just really varies and it's difficult to know, like, is it a new species? Is it a naturally occurring hybrid? Or is it just like a cultivar, like a funky looking one? So right now, sometimes we will not know this until we're able to do genetic testing and we can compare specifically where it belongs. So for now, I'm going to describe and sort of introduce these as what they were sold to me as, and then we'll see what it eventually turns into. So this one is also a Scalprum that was sold to me as narrow. So this is the narrow Scalprum. It is growing and you can see like some of the leaves at first were like really long. So far, most of the difference that I've seen has to do with the texture. This one is definitely less corrugated than the other one. It is a lot smoother and a little more silvery. It gives almost like a little bit of a heterophylla vibe, but definitely not that. And the stem is not fully red or pink. This one has a much more kind of different type of. So this one is interesting. I'm keeping an eye on it. It feels very much like a heterophylla. Could be. You know, it could have been just mislabeled and missold. But if not, this is just the narrow version. And then this one also was sold to me as another type of Scalprum. This is a Scalprum called Aklan, which I believe is probably the area or the zone where it comes from like the Philippine area. It did some weird stuff. It has not been the easiest of plants so far. It has a corrugated type of leaf. It has a lobe kind of, so it is pretty different from the normal Scalprum that I have. Again, this one has a green stem, this one has a red stem. There's a lot of differences that made me question like the true identity of what this is. But hey, for now, until we get an inflow, I'm just trying to give you the best information that I have. So this one was sold to me as the Scalprum Aklan, and it's pretty cool. I mean, look at the picture that it's supposed to look like and turn into. Yeah, this is pretty dope. So in my original video, I said that I would not get a pink dragon, and I lied. I ended up getting a pink dragon fairly after that. So I've had these two. I have two of them. The other one is right here. So I have two of them. This is the other one in a different type of container, but the same. These are not the same, I don't believe. So I will try to make a full video once I figure it out and untangle the mess. But pink dragon is considered a mixture. Like there's no true pink dragon. There is a collection of plants that were slightly different, like heavy on this lightly. They were basically the same plant, just different kind of subcultivars. They named different things. And then that what got sent to the US market, and then the Aurora got sent to the EU, and then everything got kind of mixed up and sold. So I am not sure what is the true identity of these. I believe it could be an Ivory Coast, and this one could be like a Morocco, but you also have all of the others, like you can see the list of that collection. I'm struggling to figure it out. I was hoping that the inflorescence would lead me, but honestly it didn't, because the inflows look very similar, except this one is a lot lighter in the appendix, and then this one has a deep like orange appendix. So that will be what I use to identify these. But yeah, this one is sitting in Pon and is doing really well. This one is sitting in Aroid mix and is also doing really well. Both of them are putting out inflorescences, and I have not seen any struggle with it, to be honest. Like, the leaves are not moving. It just keeps on growing and pushing in both of them. So far, I mean, it's too early to tell. Maybe they'll bolt later. But so far, it has been pretty good. As you can see here, these are maybe like the leaf differences. If you're familiar with all of the pink dragon Alocasias, yeah, tell me the difference. Which one is this one? 1, 2. 1, 2. Comment below. What's 1? What's 2? They're pretty. They're cool. You can see the stems, which is what makes it be. This one has less of the speckles. This one has more of the speckles, but they're basically the same and heavy. This plant comes in some beautiful variegated versions. I mean, look at that. That Albo one is expensive, but it's gorgeous. I would definitely have this plant in an Albo variegation, but I would swap for it. I would not pay for it. I like this plant. It puts out a lot of corms, and so far it has really changed how I feel about it. So if you're interested in a nicer like room humidity type of Jewel, quote unquote, Alocasia, this one works. As you can see, it does not have crispy edges. It's sitting in 2 completely different spots, and it gets different ventilation, and both are doing real well. Up next is one of the most difficult plants. Actually, this should be last in the list, but I was like, okay, I don't want this to be last because I want people to like be aware of it. So this is Alocasia infernalis. It is known as having like the deepest, blackest kind of leaves. I believe this is a true jewel. It stays compact. It actually has this almost red iridescent color whenever it matures. So if you shine a light, it looks really pretty. I have killed like 5 of these plants. Brutal. Tough plant. It does not like its root touched. It does not like becoming like too dry. It grows in a very weird way in which it gets really skinny and tall, and then it tries to push out like roots out of almost every single like millimeter. So it covers itself in roots, but it stays really slender. It never thickens, so it kind of loses its wobbliness. So some of the stuff that I'm trying right now, it's in this tiny thing, but I'm gonna put it into a deeper container and kind of plant it lower. And then my idea is to just kind of not fill it up to the top, of course, just fill it up to wherever the last root system is. And as it keeps growing and pushing out more roots that way, I'll just keep kind of topping off the container until maybe eventually we'll get it to the top. And it does come in a variegated version that looks kind of pink because of how dark it is. But honestly, that is just nightmare fuel. I mean, if I hate the normal one, like if you give it to me variegated, like you're just asking me to like suffer. So maybe if it's free or a swap, but I will not be purchasing this plant variegated. Up next is one of those plants that have been around for a while, but it continues to be a mystery. This is Alocasia Blue Dragon, and this is the offspring of my bigger Blue Dragon. Once it gets bigger, it begins to get leaves that look more angular. It actually looks a lot like the Nebula, except it has all this matte kind of finish, and it does look pretty blue and iridescent like in person, and the video doesn't show too well, but against the light as you move it, it does get like a bluish kind of sheen. I believe this is an undescribed species that has not been categorized yet. It just entered the market and we literally ran away with it. It does this really weird thing in which sometimes it just stops growing. Like the original version of this plant did not reach inflorescence stage, but it just put out a leaf and then it just gave up on me. This one is another one of my wishlist plants that I had in one of the older videos. And it is, I want to say, in its worst, ugliest looking phase. And that is why I wanted to like highlight it. Because this is Alocasia reversa, which I wanted to kind of get to compare to the baginda because they're supposed to be like inverse or something. I don't think it looks anything like it. It looks very different. This plant is a clumper. So instead of pushing out or getting bigger, it kind of just stays smaller and just puts out more and more corms and growth points. This plant started with like 1 inside, and then it quickly became, as you can see, like 4 or 5 in there, which has made it kind of, I think, too many, and that's kind of like what they're struggling in part. And the second one is they went through an inflorescence cycle, all of them. It's almost like they synced up, and all of them started putting out inflows, and that did not help. I have a bunch, and I give them away for free every time I go to a swap because I have a lot of them. This it multiplies very easily. It puts out a lot of corms. It inflows easy. But what I noticed is this plant bolts, and this will be an exactly good example. This will be a good example for me to show you what I mean by bolting. So as you can see right here, in this plant, right here is where we had the flower or the inflow. Like the inflow came out of here, but after it was done, after it dried up, like nothing else like came out of here. Come on, focus. Come on. So as you can see, this is where the inflow came out, and afterwards when it dried up, nothing new has come out, and it's just kind of like just there. Like it has no new growth point. That's just kind of bolted. Same thing happened with this one. As you can see right here, it basically put out a leaf, and now it has not done anything right there. So you can see how it put out like an inflow, and it has nothing. It has no growth point. It has, well, it's pushing 1 to the side, which is what I think happens with this plant. So I would not be surprised if like a new little plant comes out of this space right here. This one also bolted. This one is the only one that has put out any kind of new growth recently. But as you can see from some of the footage that I have, this plant looked gorgeous. Look how big it was. It was full. It was lush. I just think this plant really goes through its ups and its down, and then you just have to like just roll with it. What I'm going to do, some of the strategy, my plan of attack, I'm going to get rid of like the ones that are bolted. I'm gonna just pull them and give it like a fresh media, and then leave the ones that are actually having active new growth like in the middle, and then just hope for it to like refill up. So I'll have my pictures for now. This was a wishlist plant. It has been a good experience just because I find it to be not that difficult, but it has not been the most aesthetic of plants, and it just multiplies a lot. So I ended up with a lot of duplicates that sometimes end up being more of like cumbersome than anything. Up next is another plant that was in my wish list, and this is Alocasia clipiolata. I've had it for a little bit of time. It outgrew its original container and then it went here. This, I would say, is very different than the Cuprea. You know, this is what's called like the green shield. This is like paper thin compared to how like thick the other one is. And it has a very different growth pattern. This one has a much longer petiole for me, and it just throws it out. Like it just is one of those spreaders. Like it just spreads like that. It has been holding between 6 leaves, sometimes a little less. Like right now it has 4 big ones. Something that I've noticed with this plant, it has been that I think it's a humidity that it does not love, because it starts off like this, like it looks just fine, really pretty. This one, brand new. This is the latest leaf that we got. But eventually it begins to get crispy on the edges, like this. I think this is coming from too little humidity. So having low humidity is what's causing this crispiness from the edge in. As you can see, it also happens here. And eventually, you know, the last leaves are the most affected ones by it. So maybe you can want to be like, oh, it's just natural aging of the leaf, perhaps. But the pattern, the frequency, how consistent it is in the way it puts out, it leads me to believe that eventually at some point, maybe it just doesn't, it needs more humidity or something like that is happening to the plants, because it has done this from the beginning. So this one that I had at the intro video, this is a actual clipiolata hybrid. Clipiolata is the most likely parent. It could also just be a subtype. Basically how you differentiate different clipiolatas is going to be on the number of veins that come out of this central one. So you cannot count them. So that one has 4, and then this one has some more. So it could also just be another type of clipiolata, but it was sold to me as a clipiolata hybrid. And it looks like that. They could have sort of like maybe the hybrid vigor and makes it better or more resilient. But so far, it's been pretty good and consistent. So I think higher humidity helps prevent that edging. This plant is gorgeous. I expect it to get really nice and big. And unlike its other counterpart, it does not create really long petioles that are kind of like dangling everywhere. It kind of holds it a little bit better. This is my other Clipiolata baby, and it is really special because it has kind of won awards. Like you can see how big it gets. I think this is an undescribed probably species or a hybrid or just like a cultivar of this. It's considered a CAV, which means like similar or closest to Clipiolata, but most likely it'll just end up being a different species. It is very similar, of course, like it has the same vibe, it has the same thing. Maybe it's just like a cultivar in itself. Yeah, this one has not been the easiest. It was doing really well and growing super, super well. And then it rotted, like completely rotted. And yeah, I was gonna like pull it out of this container, but I decided against it because it did have an active growth point that's still kind of pushing. Up next is one that I said I would not buy, and technically I did not. This is Alocasia poly, which is a mutation of Amazonica that is supposed to have like polyploidy genes, so it has double the amount. This was traded to me as a pink dragon variegated corm that potentially could be variegated or not. I was like, sure, we'll take it. And if you have seen my old variegated Alocasia video, I called it a pink dragon, and many of you in the comments were like, that is a poly. And I was like, yeah, you're right, most likely will be. 1000% this is a poly. So this one ended up being one of the variegated ones. The original leaf was variegated, but the rest of it obviously is not. So I think this plant just completely reverted. The reason I'm keeping it is it has a bunch of corms down there, and I'm hoping that they get bigger and maybe I'll put it out and maybe it'll have like variegation in its corms, even though the main one like reverted. And then this one, similar story. This was the original kind of leaf that I was like, ooh, look at that ghost kind of type of minty kind of poly cool thingy. But then the other two that it has put out, they're completely green. So I am hoping that maybe it'll pull out a corm or something like that that will be more stable. So that's the reason that I'm holding these polys. They're okay. I don't care for them. They're like much like the beginner kind of starting plant. I found them to be difficult because whenever you brought them home, like it really struggled to find a spot. But these ones were grown from corm, and honestly, this is growing like right next to the light, and it has not been the most difficult of plants. This version of poly I actually got for a swap, and I traded it from a baginda variegated that I had duplicate. As you know, my mom is right there. So this has this greenish kind of, it comes out in this light yellow kind of color from within it, and then it turns like this kind of minty color, and then it kind of just, I don't know, it looks sick. Like, am I allowed to like say that of my plant? Like if I own it and I think it looks sick, it's obviously not sick. It's pretty stable variegation. And if anything, it holds so many leaves. I mean, this plant has over 10 leaves and it's little. So I kind of like it because it has been like a little bonsai. Like it just has stayed so compact and the leaves have not gotten crispy or yellow or ugly or anything. So far so good with this plant, even though I don't like the way it looks because I think it looks sick. Hey, it's doing well and it's just growing itself. And the last one that I put into this Jewel Alocasia kind of category is this one. This is a mutation also of like the Polyamazonica type of plants. This is Alocasia mandalae. The biggest difference between this and sort of like the Amazonica of them is like this one creates this really, really circular, almost like heart-shaped leaves that have a lot of veination. So as you can see, it's starting to get more veins. So it ends up looking just like this with a heart, a veinated one. I have seen a variegated version. I struggle a lot with this plant. Like initially, like when I put it, it just completely crashed. As you can see here, this is actually an offshoot of the original plant that just like died. So I struggled transitioning it out. I put it in here, it was doing okay. I took it, the lid out, and then it just crashed. And then eventually, after many months, it grew this side shoot. And again, I left it with the lid on, 100% humidity, and then it went into the cabinet. And it was doing really well. And I was like, okay, you're putting out more leaves, you're not turning yellow, you're not crisping. And now finally it's living in ambient temperature. And so far so good. It has transitioned fairly well. It's sitting on a perlite sphagnum mixture, and it's probably gonna get the same, or it's probably gonna stay here for a while because there's a lot of space. I own this plant, which is a Puncat borneensis. I don't believe it's considered a Jewel Alocasia. It just gets kind of bigger, I think, than that. But hey, maybe it does belong in this category. But someone did comment that potentially this is a Venusta, and I was just like, you know, sent the wrong thing. So I just wanted to point it out. Either this is a Puncat borneensis, potentially in this category, or this is a Venusta, and then I'm just gonna wish list plant the plant that I already have. But anyway, the one that I have left is that one. It looks like this, and I just wanna see how it compares to my Reversa, and I wanna see how it compares to the Baginda and them.
And I actually was able to end up getting a Venusta. This is what it looks like. So this is Alocasia Venusta. And I do think it looks different than the one that I have that is supposed to be a Puncat Bernensis. Just because the other one is has a lot more texture. This one is just like longer and smoother. So this is an interesting plant. It is sitting in whatever is the mix that the seller had, because I did not want to mess with it too much at the beginning. And it just pushed out a new leaf. So I'm just going to keep observing it and then try to put it on some pond. But so far this plant has been beautiful and different. So I actually do not have any wish list plants because this was the only one I had, and I was able to get it during IAS.
And I do have some that are the Alocasia watsoniana and that kind of Jewel Alocasia, and some other hybrids like the Sedanii with Cuprea, but I'm going to put those in the other category just because they look so much similar to some of the bigger plants, and I think they just have a better conversation to be had in that video. So if you're looking for watsoniana, if you're looking for Sedanii or any of the other kind of Sanderiana de Nobilis, you'll find all of those in the other video. So those are the Jewel Alocasias in my collection. As you can see, I consider them to be 20, but I have way more than 20 Alocasia plants. I have closer to 60. So everything else from this list basically goes on the other video, including this one. This is Alocasia mycolitziana or Friedek, but while some people put it in the category of Jewel, I don't believe so. So if you want to learn more about this plant and then everything else that I have that I don't consider a Jewel Alocasia, check out the other video. And also YouTube thinks that this video is the best one for you.